All right, Chris. Well, first man off the Radio Shack bus here, big crowd. You get a big round of applause. Long team meeting today, which I was a little surprised by because it seems like a pretty straightforward, flat stage. I want to hear about the meeting, but first, maybe just tell us a little bit about what it's like riding on Lance Armstrong's team with all this hubbub, with all these fans, with all the attention.
Well, it's always fantastic riding with Lance. I mean, the attention's definitely huge. The amount of crowd he brings, the security, extra security, with the police, with his own security, within the team security is just enormous. Just those amount of guys. There's usually 10 extra security guys floating around here all the time. So it's definitely a big thing to control the crowd a little bit because they are so big here around the bus. But in the meeting today, I think the most part, it was long just because it's the first day. We had to talk a little bit about yesterday. We had to talk about, of course, Lance has great form and what he did yesterday. We got to talk about what this next week's got in store for us and what we got in store for the 2 weeks after that. So it is definitely a little bit longer meeting than normal.
So you weren't just talking about the stage from Rotterdam to Brussels. It was in context of the prologue. It was in context of what's coming up tomorrow and the next day.
Absolutely, a little bit about everything. Certainly today is important, but just the most thing you took from today's race is just how important it is that we're not here to socialize. We're not here to hang out with friends. We're not here to go back to the back of the group and eat a cake together. We're here on business, and we got plenty of time for friendship and all that stuff when the race is done.
Well, we're all running a bit late today, so I'm just going to ask you one last question. You're known as the master tactician, one of the guys that can read the race as well as anybody. On a team like this where you've got Johan, who's known as this very strategic director, Lance, tons of experience, guys like Kloden, are you able to get your voice in as well and give your opinions? And do you ever disagree with the tactic during the meeting?
It's just not necessary normally. Normally they don't need my help at all. We have, of course, with Galopin, we have Galopin driving up the road, viewing the course before we get to it. We have Johan behind us telling us, relaying the information that Galopin's given us. Tactically, when you have one of the strongest guys in the race, it makes the strategy really easy at a race like the Tour de France. Keep him out of trouble, let him go on the big climb. So there's not a whole lot going on here versus something where you saw California a couple years back where it was raining, our radios weren't working, the time gap splits we were getting were different than what guys even on the side of the road were yelling at us. And so there's certain times when you can realize that maybe the information the directors are getting aren't the same information of what's really going on in the race. And so sometimes you got to play with that. But for the most part, there's nothing I have to do on this team except for pedal my bike and look after Lance.
Well, I have no doubt that when you do throw in your opinion, they listen because I know that stage of the Tour of California, Levi has credited you for essentially saving the race. Well, last question today. Field sprint, straightforward?
Yeah, straightforward, field sprint. Unless somehow, someplace, a lot of wind comes into play, which I don't see. It's not windy at the moment right now, so it looks like it should be a pretty safe day. Of course, we are in a bit of a traffic furniture area. This part of the country certainly has its obstacles in the road, so you have to be careful of that. Outside of that, maybe a couple of fans that might be in the road, I would say it should be straightforward and come into a sprint.
Who's your pick?
Ooh, right now that's hard to say. I'm gonna go with Tyler.
Yeah, I think a lot of Americans are pulling for Tyler. Chris, thanks for the time. We'll check in with you again tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.